Podcast City Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Deathmatch Russell Podcast. Let's get it on!
Come into the ring, step into the fire, see what you want, baby. If your heart has desire, get out, get knocked down. Deathmatch Russell Podcast, Deathmatch Russell Podcast, Deathmatch Russell Podcast.
Good evening, everyone, and you're listening to a special edition of the Deathmatch Russell Podcast, where I'm going to be talking to my friend, the author, historian, Mr. John Cosper. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Happy Memorial Day to all, and to
Happy
everybody
Memorial Day.
on this day, this weekend of barbecues galore, and all the people shooting off fireworks in the neighborhood like usual.
Yeah, they were bothering my dog last night. All 7 pounds of him. He does not like fireworks. So
The typical, Memorial Day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you good?
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of slowness, but trying to get things. Yeah, I'm not sure who else is streaming stuff in the house at the moment, but how we doing? We good?
Mm-hmm. I think
Okay.
so.
I can hear you fine.
me?
Yep. Good.
Yep, there we go. All right. So anyway, man, what have you been up to, man? You've been busy doing some books. Busy as always.
It's turned into a crazy busy year. Actually, 2020 was probably my busiest year, I think, between wrestling and fiction stuff. Probably about 7 books came out that year. This year, I put Wahoo McDaniel's book out literally on December 31st, and it wasn't until other than publishing a couple of books for Mike Rogers, a Pacific Northwest historian. I did 2 of his books in the winter and spring. Actually, the second one just came out. And right now in the midst of dropping quite a few of them that all just kind of timed out right about the same time and behind them. So, yeah, it's turning into a very busy year.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Madman Pondo's book is always doing very good as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just met up with him today, and we got a bunch more books restocked for him. So if you're looking for Madman Pondo's book, you want to get it signed. He doesn't just sign his name. You get the beautiful artwork with the book too. So and definitely worth it. That's actually one of the projects that's on my slate for the rest of the year is he wants to do a second book. So we've been talking about it for forever, and I think I'm finally going to get him nailed down, and let's just do it. Let's just knock it out.
That sounds interesting. Maybe I'll have to we'll have to get him back on here for that, just to push the book.
Heck yeah! Well, just bring I mean, anytime you're around Pondo, and it's the reason why I chased him and I said, you know what, you've got to do a book because I'm the one that went after him, and he was like, nobody wants to read my book. Nobody wants to read a book of stories about me and this kid from Florida, Illinois, who wanted to be a wrestler and became a deathmatch guy. It's like, dude, every time I'm around you, you pull me aside and you're like, here's a story about this, here's a story about that, and it's the contrast. I always like to point this out is it's
always great to see it's always great to see him at a show and just and he loves to promote his book. I mean, last time I remember going to Game Changer Wrestling's when we did the his induction ceremony for him one year, and people bought his book. They were so happy. I was excited too.
I went to Masters of Pain last summer, and he wasn't even wrestling. He was just promoting the show. I took 20 copies. I could have sold 20 more easy. I was sold out of his book before, and there was 3 shows that weekend, and I had sold out of his book before Masters of Pain even got started that night. So I easily could have sold another 20.
Yeah, but now he's doing good, so he's everywhere again. He's doing his out there, still wrestling.
I have to say too, shout out to Deathmatch fans. I'll tell you, I always tell people I sell the most books at 2 places. If I go to like a Hall of Fame event, like the Hall of Fame in Iowa, if I go to Cauliflower Alley Club, something like that, or if I'm at a Deathmatch show. deathmatch fans buy books. They live for this. People underestimate, deathmatch wrestlers and deathmatch fans and deathmatch wrestling in general. So it's not typically my cup of tea, but I certainly get it. And they're some of the best wrestlers and some of the best storytellers in the business.
The one book I still need to go pick up at like Barnes and Nobles or wherever. I need to pick up John Moxley's book. I still have not
just
read that.
finished it. It's fun.
Yeah.
So he's all over the place with it. Don't look for a linear narrative. It's not what you want from Moxley. It's Moxley.
No,
It's like I'm gonna tell you my favorite CD. Now I'm gonna tell you about this story in WWE. Now I'm gonna tell you about the story that happened last week. Let's go back to WWE. Let's go back to whatever. He's just all over the place, and it's fun. It's like just
his
spending
stories on the road.
Spending a little bit of time in his head.
Yep, guy from IWA Mid South and just CZW and just built his name to something that he was. And,
Absolutely, and one of the best entertainers in the business.
and still a current GCW world champion. So still holding the title. But anyway, you got me talking about some books here that caught my eye. Bluegrass Brawlers. Okay, what is this all about?
That's actually the first book that I released 8 years ago this summer. And this is the 10th anniversary edition of that. 10th anniversary asterisk, because I started writing it 10 years ago, and it's 10 sounds better than 8, and this is pro wrestling. It's all kayfabe. But
right.
I had wanted to go back for a while to expand on the first book. When I did the first book, a lot of my research on the olden days, I had to go to the library and scroll through the microfilms to look at the old newspaper results. So it's kind of hit and miss in those, the 1940s and 50s and 30s and all that. All that stuff is now online. The entire Courier Journal, Louisville, Kentucky is all online. So, I mean, I went through and I gathered every single wrestling result from 1900 all the way through 1967 when it went dark, the 3 years before Memphis came into town. So, we filled in a lot of stories in that era. I did a lot of interviews with some of the OVW developmental guys, Doug Basham, talked to Rico Costantino, got to talk to Nick Dinsmore. Just got a lot more information about the developmental era. Talked to Al Snow and Maria James and a lot of other folks who are involved there now to kind of catch the story of what's going on right now. Billy Starks, who I interviewed for the book. Haley J.
So I was going to say the youngest and the youngest talent that's killing it on the scene today. She's my God. She's
absolutely.
She's the future.
She certainly is. Yeah, I put her on the cover along with the Black Panther Jim Mitchell, who was really the first African American superstar in pro wrestling, is from Louisville. Jim Cornette, obviously Louisville's favorite wrestling son, and Lord Humongous, who's actually from New Albany, Indiana, right across the river from Louisville, which is where I'm from as well. So, and that's Lord Humongous Jeff Van Camp, who was a great interview and a lot of fun to talk to. And my goal is, a couple years ago, I got Stu Gibson in the New Albany High School Hall of Fame, who wrestled in the 50s. I'm going to get Lord Humongous in the New Albany High School Hall of Fame too. So, I already let my friend on the committee know that I'm coming for him. So, and eventually we'll get Rob Conway in there as well. So,
right.
Yeah,
that's awesome. He's and then also there's like a couple another book here. It's called the Darkness Side of the Ring.
Darkest Side of the Ring. Yeah, that's actually that's the re-release as well. A couple years ago, I did a couple short novels with Ella, who's a fantastic wrestler out of Cincinnati. She has this psycho from the psych ward, comes out in a straight jacket gimmick. She has the most blood-piercing scream you've ever heard. Wrestler too, and just a super lady. But I did a short novel, kind of a horror novel with her, and also did one with Charlie Cruel, who's certainly she's working with OVW now, and her character's kind of changed from the psycho killer she used to play. But I just want to put that back out there. I'm starting to promote some of the fiction stuff that I've done. I've written a couple of horror compilations the last few years, and it was just kind of a way to broaden both those catalogs. So put both of those books under one heading. It's Charlie Cruel, Escape from VHS Hell, and Ella, Wrestling with Madness are the two titles, and then combine them into The Darkest Side of the Ring with that wonderful cover by James Duncan, who's done a whole lot of them for me.
That's awesome. And also another book where you're going to talk about some death matches as well, right? It's called what is it? The Iron Jaw. The girl with the Iron Jaw.
Yeah, I actually just finished that one up tonight. That'll be on Amazon later this week, and I should have it on my website in a few weeks. Another one is historical wrestlers that just kind of caught my eye as I was doing research on when I wrote my book on Elvira Snodgrass a couple years ago. Mars Bennett was from Detroit, Michigan. She went into the circus and formed Clyde Beatty Circus, the Ringling Brothers Circus. She was a trapeze artist. She was a web girl.
Cool.
She was an animal.
That's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty neat. Circus
did all
girl.
that stuff. Yeah, she did all that stuff, and then she kind of became a pinup queen in the late 40s in a lot of the Cheesecake magazines. Switched to pro wrestling in 1950 and died tragically in 1957 in a car accident. But you mentioned death match. Now in 1956, a death match was more what we call a last man standing match these days. But she wrestled 3 Texas death matches in Florida in 56 against 3 different ladies, which was whoever can't answer the bell or gets the other one to submit. That was basically the rules. She wrestled 3 of those. She also wrestled a lot of mixed tags. Where it was with a man and a woman, and it was kind of the rules like AEW and WWE use right now, where when you tag your partner in, the other one's got to come in, where the men couldn't wrestle the women, vice versa.
Yes.
But she did take a punch from Dory Funk Sr. one night. That doesn't qualify as being the girl. Now she was called the girl with the iron jaw. That goes back to her circus days, and there was the trapeze act where she would actually hang upside down from the trapeze and holding on to this thing with a leather bit on the end, and her partner would grip that bit in her mouth and swing. She claimed she did the. I don't have photographic proof that Mars did it the other way. I'm sure she probably did. She certainly could have. Yeah. She was strong as an ox. She was a bodybuilder. There's a lot of great photos in the book of her. She's got a barbell, 150-pound barbell across the tops of her feet, and she's lifting her trainer, straight up over her as well, bench pressing him. Just an absolute powerhouse as far as muscles and everything. But the nickname "Girl with the Iron Jaw" came from the circus and translated over wrestling. But you take a punch from Dory Funk Sr. That's I'm sure it was a work, but I'm sure she said Mars would have said, "Come on and hit me." Anybody knows how Mae Young was. She was out of that same mold. And actually, there's a great picture of her and Mae Young standing in front of a shop that it looks like Mae and Gloria Baratini owned together. Just a great photo of the two of them in the book.
Probably also and Wendy Richter, of course, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's good to see books that wrestlers that are don't exist anymore, and people need to see who they are, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I always tell younger wrestlers, you go back and you look at what these wrestlers did in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and there's gimmicks and there's little things that they did that haven't been seen in 50, 60 years, and there's nothing new under the sun. What's old is new again. Go back and find something that one of these people did.
It's like
bring it back.
It's like the mid when boxing was so. You remember when like boxing, the old fashioned boxing would be part of the circus show too. See, the old 2 men in the ring, and they'd be just like tidy ropes around the ring. That.
And so that's where all those ladies back in the day, Mildred Burke, Mae Young, they all started training to do the shows at the circus. So if you go back to the 1880s and you were to go into New York and in some of the bars where they had wrestling, you might see Thomas Edison, you might see P.T. Barnum. A couple years later, Teddy Roosevelt hanging out in these bars watching wrestling.
And a lot of midgets as well back then too.
Yeah.
A lot of midgets.
That's a whole book in itself, man. And that's in the back of my mind. Everybody talks about the women's wrestling was ruled by Billy Wolf, and then kind of Moolah took it over. Lord Littlebrook ran the show for the midgets the same way that they did for the women. So, and I hear he was kind of tough the same way they were with the ladies. So, actually, there's a funny story in the Mars Bennett book when she was with the circus. I found a notice, and it was in the Billboard magazine, which is kind of I guess inner, it was inside stuff that were in the circus. But the Ringling Brothers women had a baseball game against the midgets, and it's the first home run of the game, but the midgets won 15-5.
That's crazy. And you think back to the midget wrestling, gosh, like you remember growing up, it was like Bobo or like Tonga Kid and like all the other guys, like the the little Indian guy. Like there's so many wrestlers back.
Yeah, there was little Beaver
Yeah,
who he
yes.
wrestled. He's the one that got squashed by Bundy on WrestleMania 3. I've got photos of Little Beaver from ads in Louisville, Kentucky, going back to like 1955. I mean, little Beaver he had been around by the time he got there. So, and then Dr. D was actually, I wrote Dr. D. David Schultz's book. He was good buds with the Haiti Kid, and then they actually ran a training school together for a while. But they were pretty close for a while. So
forgot about the Haiti Kid. That was another person who was really big. But there were so many back in the day, though. So many, and that. But now you see all this micro wrestling and this and that. And
there's the guys down in Pigeon Forge. They've got the Microtorium right off the Parkway in Pigeon Forge. And I don't know how we love going down there. I don't know how I'm going to talk my wife into let me go over to see them, but they seem to be doing well down there.
They just did a show down, I guess, in Asbury or New York, in Jersey. I need to get to one of those just for fun. I need to go see a midget. I tell my friend we're going to go see one. We got to go just get Everett see one before, and he said it's a kick. You just got to go and see it.
Yeah. And they were quite an attraction anytime they came to town back in the 50s in Louisville, and even in the 60s they were still coming around when Bruiser took over, and it was always an attraction. So I
know a couple of them. I think it's like Pinky and Psycho Kid or Psycho and a couple others.
Some of the ones from back in the day. There's Tiny Row. There's Fuzzy Cupid. I'm trying to think. Short
Sleeve Samson, of course. Look, he used to wrestle all the time in Jersey, just like come around. But of course, Hornswoggle. But he's doing his
right. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with the midgets these days. Yeah. But anyway, would you think about writing a book about midgets?
Yeah, like I said, that's a whole history and story that hasn't been tapped. So it's kind of one of those. It's one of those ideas in the back of my mind. I mean, and it would be knowing where to start. It'll be interesting to go back and see how far back it goes and who the guys were that started it. But there's a lot of interesting personalities, and actually, Flair would be a good guy to try to hit up and talk to, because he knew Lord Littlebrook, and I know he's told a lot of Lord Littlebrook stories. So, but it certainly is. It's not on my agenda. I got a lot of stuff that I get to.
I know you do.
But I gotta and more people are wanting to do stuff, and there's stuff that I want to do for myself. I mean, I'm wrapping up another historical bio on somebody. Most 99% of fans haven't heard her name, and there's another one that I want to go and do. Probably a year from now, I want to dive back into that era. But I mean, it's one of those things you keep in the back of your mind. Yeah, that one, and I'll say another history I would like to do would be the history of Parts Unknown. I mean, how many wrestlers have come from Parts Unknown, and where is Parts Unknown? And it would be an interesting thing to delve into. I mean,
because you always heard that line in wrestling.
Parts Unknown. Yep.
Where are they from?
Exactly.
That's like a mystery in itself, because you always have to have that.
I'd say another thing that I think would be fascinating would just be to do bear wrestling, to look at Terrible Ted and the multiple gingers. And I mean, that's a whole, you could fill a whole book with those stories as well.
Yeah. The bear. And also was it the one time that Tracy's mother, Tracy wrestled the bear. Remember that?
Three different bears. 5 occasions. Yep.
Totally.
Tracy and the Three Bears was the alternate title for his book. I don't think we could have named it anything other than If You Don't Buy This Book, Everybody Dies. But Tracy and the Three Bears was kind of the runner-up title. So, but yeah, he wrestled 3 different bears, and my gosh, all 3 of those stories are great. And of course, the third one he had to wrestle 3 nights in a row, and I think he was working a singles and a tag match, that same night. So he was working 3 times each night. Starting with the bear every time, and that was when the news reporter showed up and wanted to interview him and talking about cruelty to animals, and he's like, "Lady, I'm the one's got to go in there with the bear. Why aren't you worried about me?"
But he was one of those guys wasn't scared, so
No, I wasn't scared. That's the guy I miss every day too. He was a guy that texted or called every other day, and was just loved on everybody, and that's a big hole that's missed in the business right now. I'll tell you.
I think the last time I saw Tracy wrestle was probably way back in wow, back in Jersey All Pro Wrestling days when he was with Necro,
I saw him
Necro
in
Butcher.
Somerset, Kentucky. This would have been fall of 2019, right before he started chemo treatment the first time. He was in I want to say it was a 5-on-5 cage match for Kentucky Zone Wrestling, and he was with the baby faces, and at the end of it, he turns around and turns heel, and I saw some guy in the front row just shocked as he could be. Hey, he's double crossed him. It's just like, don't tell me kayfabe's dead. It's not dead down here.
But we knew that. We knew that promoter really well. He was a good friend of ours, and let's talk JJ McGuire. And another great book that really people need to check out if they haven't still not checked out.
Yeah, he is. I'll say if you're familiar with Jimmy Hart's music, Jimmy Hart wrote the lyrics. JJ wrote the music. That goes back to their days with the Gentrys.
I tell everybody. Yeah. I tell everybody all the time. My friends like, no way. Like, and I tell wrestlers on my podcast. They're like, that's cool. Like, it's
I remember when Jim Johnson was released from WWE, he went on Sean Mooney's podcast, and Sean Mooney's like, well, tell me about Sexy Boys. Like, well, that was Jimmy Hart, JJ McGuire. Well, tell me about Honky Tonk Man. That was Jimmy Hart, JJ McGuire. I mean, all the ones that you love, and you can listen to 100 times over, or Jimmy Hart, JJ McGuire, and that goes. The Wrestling Boot Band was another one. I mean, he was all the music on that one as well. And again, another kind and gracious person. Somebody had a lot of.
I just want to say thank you to him, and you as, all of us contributing to his, me, you, Everett Lee, and just a whole bunch of others, just to help him get that boost, and he needed that, and he had a good career.
Yeah, I wish he could have seen just the outpouring that happened after he passed. It's a shame that people have to pass before everybody's like, oh, that was that guy, and she's like, come on, but it's been great, his got to go down for the memorial, and his family was just so wonderful and so receptive, and
I was going to say, how was that? Oh my gosh,
it was great, actually. A lot of the indie folks from KZW, because KZW is kind of in his hometown there in Somerset, and a lot of them got up and spoke and everything, and it was really nice just the way the family really embraced it, and they were so proud of him, and he was the little brother, so I mean it was his older brother was completely heartbroken, and obviously his kids are both very young too, and but just great kids and really awesome people, and a wonderful welcoming family, and it was a beautiful tribute, and you get to see his gold records. They had his gold records out on display for the Pile Driver album, and I don't recall what the other one was for, but seeing those in person, and his Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonel certificate that he was very proud of, and I mean JJ had a lot of life experiences and a lot of great stories, and
he really did, man. He lived the life of a superstar, a rock star.
He certainly did, and just eternal gratitude for everything he got to do. He and just a genuine soul. I really miss him too.
I mean, we all, and I always tell my friends he drove Hulk Hogan's Viper, in a parade. Like,
if you've seen Thunder in Paradise, if you've seen the Wrestling Boot Band videos, you've seen JJ, and my gosh, if you watched wrestling, if you've seen Shawn Michaels, you've heard JJ McGuire. So I know,
and I tell friends to listen to it, and they love it. They're like, no way, this guy did the voice. I tell them, Jimmy. Super, and just they get a kick out of it.
Yeah,
my dad gets a kick out of it. I tell him once in a while still. Yeah.
Yeah, that album, that Wrestling Boot Band album, years ago, my buddy who moved in with me and brought all the wrestling books, and that's what got me into reading the wrestling books and ultimately led to me writing them. But he and another friend of mine, that was part of our soundtrack one summer. We were driving around, and if we weren't listening to Green Day or No Doubt or Blink-182, we were listening to the Wrestling Boot Band, and Last Thing I Want to Be a Hulkamaniac and Beach Patrol and all those goofy songs. We just loved them. So
Everett, when he had him at his house, was telling him JJ was telling him about, like, he was gonna release Razor Ramon's song. Never got released. Would it have been? I know
he's got a lot of stuff in the can. His entrance music he used at KZW was an alternate. It was going to be the closing theme for Thunder in Paradise, and it was what's his name? Vince Neil did the vocals on it. So who else is gonna? He wrote the song and Vince Neil sang it. That was his entrance music. I mean, how cool is that? So
it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was a
every
fan
once-
of of course he grew up in the 60s and was a Bond fan, and the British TV show The Avengers with Patrick McNee and Diana Rigg, which is stuff that I'm obsessed with as well. So we talked endlessly about those things, and he loved to tell the Patrick McNee stories because he got to know him working on Thunder in Paradise and what he was like, and just how awesome he was. And again,
just if you heard this, and he tells you the story about how he sold his clothes and he bought his clothes at Walmart and Kmart. It was great, or Kmart or whatever it was. It was great. Just the way that he got forced to stay on the set. I think that was cool.
Yeah.
For a couple dollars.
Yep.
But he lived a good life, and we're proud of it. We're proud of what he became.
Certainly, yeah. And just another guy. When I was driving to a show in Nashville, Kentucky, not too long ago. Anytime I would get sleepy on the road, it's like, who am I going to call? It's like, well, my wife doesn't like talking on the phone, so I'll call JJ. And it's just hard in those moments. It's like, oh, well, yeah, he's.
I was supposed to have him on the podcast a while back because I texted. I'm like, oh man, and I heard, and Everett was really upset, and everybody was, we're like,
certainly.
We did that tribute to him, and it really was nice to have,
Yeah. I was just talking to actually Gregory Aaron and I are working on a book, and was telling him about JJ, and he just got all excited. He's like, oh man, I want to have him on my podcast. I'm like, wish you could. I really wish you could.
Yeah,
so you would have loved him, and he was just so excited. Just to know that's the guy who did all the music, and that's the guy who was in the wrestling boot band. And
Everett wants to reach out to you in a couple days or so. I'll let him know.
Certainly, absolutely.
He wants to get back with you.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm happy to talk about any of these guys.
I know.
I just would rather be speaking to them still. I just it's hard, but as part of the business though.
Have you been to any shows over the summer?
Last show I went to was probably whatever the last Girl Fight show was here in Southern Indiana, but I actually brought Princess Victoria up for that one. It was the first time she and I got to meet in person and hang out. Spent 2 days hanging with her. Wonderful, just so much fun. She's hilarious, and so we released her autobiography year and a half ago, something like that. I tell you, it's one of the hardest ones to read you'll ever read. Her childhood was just the abuse she suffered and everything growing up with her mom and with different people in her life is rather graphic and horrific, but she overcame all that. Wrestling kind of saved her life, and Sandy Barr kind of gave her a shot in Portland. She's got incredible stories, just so funny stories about her and the girls, and Roddy Piper and a lot of the guys that she knew and hung out with. And Vicky and I had a great time. We were hanging out, and she's another one of those like Pondo and Tracy and everything, where you hang around some veterans and they just roll their eyes at every single indie match. She loved every single match. She loved on every single one of those girls in that locker room, gave them all her contact info. When they came up and said, can you watch my match? And she said, yeah, watch your match, and gave them positive feedback. She's a great person to have around, in your locker room, to have around young talent. Just loved it. Just loved being around those girls. Actually, it was fun. Then she got there the night before the show. We went to dinner with a bunch of people, and Billy Starks came. And I told her, say, Billy, tell her how long you've been wrestling. 4 years. Tell her how old you are. 17. Vicky looks at her and goes, I hate you. Yeah, I mean,
I know.
I'll tell you, Girl Fight is still one of my favorite promotions to follow.
That's one of those places, if I go visit, I would like to go to see them.
I'm always intrigued to see where Pondo's getting new talent and people he's bringing in. It's always Sawyer Wreck was the one that really, really, the first time I ever saw her in person, she took the ring. I was like, oh, she's a superstar. I mean, just the way she moves and everything. And it was a great show. Masha Slamovich threw Mickey Knuckles into my banner. And I'll tell you, those girls, man, they are. It's like watching.
I know.
It's like watching. It's like watching John Wayne Murdoch and Reed Bentley. I've never seen those guys wrestle. I've seen those guys fight. And Mickey and Masha was just a match made in hell. It was great. They really just went at it.
Yeah,
it's fun listening to Masha throw out all that Russian, and Mickey, I can't understand what you're saying.
It's just great. She's a character, man. She's out there doing her, they're all doing their thing, but it's
certainly, yeah.
Women's wrestling's evolving, and like we say every time.
Yeah.
I'm starting to catch like enjoying watching that Mission Pro Wrestling by Thunder Rosa. in Texas.
Yeah.
I'm actually enjoying seeing like the talents that they're bringing through, and it's like you see talent from the West Coast, East Coast, and it's amazing. Like just coming through and being a part of like AEW as well. You know, like
Certainly.
The dark.
Yeah, David McLean's getting well going again as well, and I've seen a couple of them coming out of Eastern Kentucky because Bobby Blaze is training out there. He and Jillian Hall used to work together, and Judy Ray Hendricks. I met her a year ago at a Girl Fight show. She's working with OVW now. Just outstanding talent. First match I ever saw her, and they put her in the main event with Billy at Girl Fight, and she throws a Canadian Destroyer on Billy Starks. I'm like, oh. Girl can go. So, and I met another one of Bobby's students not too long ago, Reese Ramon. Not only is she a wrestler, but she's a full-time college student. She's an engineering major, and she's a majorette with the Marshall University marching band. And just a sharp kid, and loves what she's doing. And it's just exciting to see it continuing to grow, and more people,
it really is
giving it a shot.
I know. Yeah, it's like that. It's like also like the guys, Nick Wayne youngest kid getting a contract pretty soon. After he graduates high school.
Yeah. We're all counting the days till Billy turns 18, just going, okay, not if, but where.
I know.
So,
I know.
Fans, especially, if you're around a Girl Fight show or whatever, you want to see Billy and you want to see Billy for $5-10, do it now.
Or go see her for $30 for that GCW or wherever she goes. They just got back from Las Vegas.
She's wrestling. God. I think she's wrestling Tank somewhere tonight. So yeah. I think that's
I think she did. I know. I think she just got done with what is it? Also, she just got back from New South.
Yeah. And she was she was trash talking online with Nick Iggy of the Carnies too, which is gosh, I miss the Carnies. Those guys were so much fun to watch.
They were great, man. Those guys were great.
The night I heard Nick Iggy, some kid was at a table trash talking. It was like, "You're ugly. You don't know anything. Your parents hate you." I was just like, "That's one of my favorite people right now." So.
Yeah, it's like this guy Alec Price is Beyond Wrestling. Like he's just hated. It's like good. It's like what we need: new faces, new people.
Oh, certainly. And I love the people. Anybody can. Anybody gets in a kid's face and makes a kid's night like that, and we'll yell and jaw at him. Sammy Callahan, I always like to tell this story. He was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. He's not even wrestling. He's ringside with the Chris brothers. And I look up, there's 3 little kids right on the front row screaming at him. And Sammy's screaming right back. And he's red-faced, turns his ball cap around. He's kicking the dust like Tommy Lasorda. It's like, you just made those kids' night, man. I love that stuff. And the people that
it's a good heckling. That's the good old heckling.
Certainly.
You need that. It's like nowadays, and I just saw we've had like young talent come to my local promotion called Titan Championship Wrestling, and we had actually just brought in Hunter Drake and his brother, the Drake brothers. 2 young guys that are the crowd loved them, ate it up. Just have to have those certain people to pick the crowd.
Yeah. There was a guy down here. He's retired. I don't know if he's going to come back or not. His name was Teddy King. And man, Teddy got so much heat. He would get on that microphone, and I remember watching a lady in the back row with a baby under her arm, like a sack of potatoes, pointing and screaming at him, tears streaming down her face. She was so angry at him. I was like, I know those moments is like, yeah, don't tell me kayfabe is dead, And there's a girl I saw she did one Girl Fight show out here named Maddie Max. Nobody knew who she was. She comes prancing out to the ring. She picks up the microphone, and within 45 seconds, everybody's ready to rip her hair out. I was like, wow,
Maddie Max.
Maddie Max, yeah.
Maddie, yes, because I remember her from BOW.
Yeah. That was like, wow, what a heat magnet.
I remember the crowd called tampon. We just made fun of her. It was great.
I'd say one of my favorite, we'll go way back, but one of the early times I went to OVW, this is developmental era, and it was Damaja and Doug Basham were wrestling a tag match, and Jackie Gate is at ringside. And this old couple in front of me, they had to be in their 60s the entire time Jackie Gate is out there. They got both middle fingers in the air, and they're just chanting, hot tub ho, the whole, never stopped. It's like, wow.
But nowadays we try to come up with newer things to get them going. It's great. It's just like, you gotta be creative,
Yeah.
But still the ripping of the signs, that's always a great, that's always been. you get the heat with the fans, and they just like what?
Well,
People
yeah,
like,
yeah. The feud between MJF and his mom is always fun to watch too. Whenever they go to New Jersey, and the signs she comes up with
yeah,
are great.
yeah. I'd always tell everybody about my experience with MJF, and I got blocked by him on Twitter. Oh man,
No. I
throwing
sat next to him at a
yeah.
show. This would have been right after All In, but about a year before AEW kicked off. But I actually heard him tell the guy, "No, you're too fat. You can't buy my T-shirt." So
Yeah, yeah,
it's like
yeah,
that's playing the heel.
yeah,
So
yeah. He's the heel, and see where he goes from here. Whatever. Go ahead,
yeah,
sign a contract. Sign that WWE contract. Yeah, good
I
luck.
don't know what's going on with that, but I don't know.
I know. We'll see what happens. We
Yeah.
just got a new. We just got a new champion. CM
Uh-huh.
Punk.
I saw that. Yeah.
I got to catch up. I got to rewatch it later. I still haven't watched like the whole card.
Mhm.
I have to watch. I'm gonna catch it and see what happened.
Yeah, I still haven't watched the last pay-per-view I bought from them, but I need to go back and it's just, I mean, like we're talking
Yeah.
off air, but I go to Planet Fitness 3 times a week, and I go on Wednesday night and I go on Friday night specifically because I don't have cable, and that's when I can catch AEW. So, and I love it, and seeing Mark Henry on there, that it's time for the main event, just love that. I've gotten to hang around with Mark a little bit here and there. He wrote the foreword for the Black Panther book, and just one of the genuinely nice guys in the business. And he just seems like he's having a good time. And they're using those veterans right. They're pouring themselves into those young guys, and you can see the growth from when they started the business, and and then when they started bringing these veterans in and started coaching guys like Darby and Jungle Boy and Sammy, and it's really fun to watch them develop these young talents.
Yeah, and the women's division, of course, as
women's
well.
division's insane. Thunder Rosa,
really
Britt
is.
Baker. My gosh,
I know.
That's probably my favorite match I've watched this year.
I'll tell you what. I was so shocked when she came to the first GCW show in Atlantic City. I guess I was like, what the hell? Like she was entered a scramble, like surprise. We didn't know who's,
yeah,
because that was like a Moxley weekend, I think, also. So yeah, go figure, bring her in for the
Yeah, that's the great thing about AEW is that they can let these people that they can go and they can do a surprise spot someplace, and WWE won't let you do that, but AEW they've got that freedom, and
Yeah, you see Darby everywhere. Yeah, Darby Black Label Pro. I mean,
tell you my favorite thing I've seen lately too was right after they announced the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. And so somebody asked Naito, they said, who do you want to face with AEW? And he's like, they should be wanting to face me. I'm Naito.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't have a wish list. I'm on all their wish lists, So,
but I'm kind of like getting sick. I'm just sick of seeing like these comedy people behind the scenes now. You're seeing like the Joke Brothers, the brothers from the Joke TV series getting signed, and like, come on, really? Jokers.
Yeah, I did.
Like, whatever.
I'll admit this was probably the best WrestleMania I've seen in ages this year, and I love that Jackass match. I'm a Jackass fan, so I mean, I kind of came up watching that stuff, and
yeah, I think we all did. I think we all kind of grew up, that.
Yeah. Even my wife sat there, and my wife's not a fan. She's like, okay, that was fun. So
that's like, it's like me watching Bam Margera, from when he was part of that as well, like when he came to Jersey and they did a spot with him and his dad at a in Atlantic City. Actually, it was great. Just smacking his dad, and just getting the heat.
Yeah. I was just listening to I said Martin Cove was on Chris Jericho's podcast. He was talking about his friendship with Britt Baker, and just how they kind of connected with Comic Cons, and when they were in Nashville, which is where he lives, they're like, hey, will you come and do something for me? Sure, absolutely. So it's fun to see that. It's always fun to see the celebrities at ringside and see who's a fan. I think it's great that Sofia Vergara is always a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla out in Los Angeles. So
it makes me hard, man. It's so hard to get those tickets. They say it's so hard to be on.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
They're
Man,
hard
you go back and watch some of those shows. I've got a few of their old DVDs, and it's fun to go back and watch and be like, oh, look who's there.
Yeah, the stack of DVDs I have. My God, that was popular back in the day, man. It was just one of those feds that had everybody and everybody.
Certainly.
But now you look back and you're watching. Now there's people. Now they're in Japan. Now these guys are getting. It's like
Yeah,
amazing.
Ace Austin. Apparently, Ace Austin was killing it with New Japan. I remember watching him. Paradigm Pro Wrestling started bringing him in. He was doing this whole gimmick with the magic wand and the
Yep.
doing the
Card
card tricks and
throwing. Yep.
everything. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the kid was great then. But I'm so excited. It's just fun to watch him come up and starting from that, and then he goes over to New Japan, gets his first shot, and he takes full advantage of it. I'm just so excited, so happy for him, and just a nice, genuine kid. The few times I got a chance to talk to him, just
And it's like it's like seeing Amber Moon back. Surprise, surprise to see her come back, get a contract through WWE. That makes sense, though. She's one of those people that could.
And you see the smiles when they come out at AEW. They're just so happy, and just the liberation of being in a place where I don't have to go out and memorize a script. I don't have to go do something stupid.
I still need to go to a show. I still need to go to an AEW.
They haven't hit Louisville. I need to just hook up next time they're in Indianapolis and say, hey, Romer, get me backstage. Scott Romer lives up there and did his book as well. And he's, if Romer wants to go, Romer knows everybody. He can get it in. So I joke with him once. So it's like, you could probably get the Pope on the line, couldn't you? And he sends me a photo of somebody he's very close with the Pope. It's like, yep. Thought so.
Nah. One of these days I'll check it out. I'll get there eventually. There's plenty of time. They said they were in. I know they were in Atlantic City one time, so they'll be back. I'm sure. They got the big list. They got the big list. They go.
The trolling of WWE and having to move their pay-per-view. I think this week was kind of fun too. So
yeah. But anyway, man, this was so much fun. Let's do this again.
Certainly, anytime. Yeah, happy to come in and talk to you. And like I said, I've got everything seems to be coming out all at once. With Bluegrass Brawlers is on Amazon now. Darkest Side of the Ring is on Amazon. And
let me see if I can pull this up.
Sure, there we go.
There we go.
There we go. There's Bluegrass Brawlers. Again, that was my first book. This is a new expanded edition. Probably 50% more content as far as story and everything. A lot more interviews. Filled in all the timeline gaps. This is, 1877 all the way up through the spring. Killed Me. Released it last week on Amazon, and then this week. I guess last night I just read OVW's apparently got a deal with Netflix. So, it's always something. Darkest Side of the Ring, a couple of horror stories about a couple of wonderful indie ladies, Charlie Cruel and Ella. I think the world of both these ladies. Nobody's got more heart and more love for this business than Charlie Cruel, and nobody's got a louder, more piercing scream than Ella. Just some great characters and just some fun stories too.
I wonder if she would like to come on. Here.
Was that which one?
Ella.
I can get you in touch with Ella, absolutely. So I'll be happy to.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think you'd love her. She's great.
Yeah. So let's go to the next one. What do you got? Here we go. Sure. Look at that. I like the slideshow. This came out pretty good.
Looks good. There we go. Girl with the Iron Jaw. Yeah, story of Mars Bennett. Again, circus girl turned pinup girl turned pro wrestler. Really, really great story about somebody from the 1950s. Someone who refused to fit into kind of a pigeonhole, and she worked as a riveter at a plant, on bombers, and wanted to be in show business. She was born, actually, she was given the name Maud when she was born, which is her grandmother's name, who was she was one of the first radio station owners and kind of a pioneer of radio back in the early days. But she hated the name Maud, said nope, not a show business name. When she was 16 years old, she changed it to Mars. And just an amazing, fun life story. It does end tragically, and she did die of a car accident at age 35. But really great story, and a really kind of a great time capsule of that time period in the 1950s in women's wrestling.
But then we go back here. I'll just leave that up there because that's still. Yep. Can we see that behind the picture? Yeah, we can see that.
Yes, sir. Yep.
No, I reckon you take it down. There we go. There to Shar Media.
Awesome.
To find your media, and Amazon. Go check it out. Go on Amazon, people.
They're on Amazon. They're on eatsleepwrestle.com. I'm really trying to make that a destination as well. So if you want the signed books, you got to come to eatsleepwrestle.com. I am still waiting on the new ones to come out. So I've got them in my store, but they're on Amazon right now if you want to check them out.
And I'm still working on getting my friend Johnny on.
Candido.
Yes,
man, I'll tell you, that's one people are, they're like, okay, which one would you recommend? And I did Wahoo McDaniel, I did Tracy Smothers, Princess Victoria, Badman Pondo, and Black Panther. They're all great stories, but I always tell people, it's like, the one guy whose matches I'm still pulling up and watching over and over, Candido.
Candido.
You go back to the 90s. I mean, I know it was a terrible character to saddle him with, but that Body Donna's bit is one of the bits from the 90s that stuck with me the most. So, as beautiful and as hot as Sunny was, and I was, 21 years old when she hit TV, I hated her guts. I hated her guts. So,
and she's on the wrong path now, but whatever.
Unfortunately, So, but man, Candido, that's another guy. I've had conversations with people. Where would he be now? Would he be at the Performance Center? Would he be on screen or on and off screen with AEW? I mean, imagine him pouring himself into this. I mean, just what a loss, and had so much love for the business.
Could you imagine if he faced MJF? Oh my goodness!
Oh gosh!
No! I bet he would have probably won the match.
I will tell you, it would not have been an all-time Steamboat Macho Man classic, but it would be one you would watch over and over. It would be in the league. It would be in the league with the Jackass match. It would be. You've seen the IWA Mid-South match, the 4-on-4 with Punk and Claudio and all that, where they're pulling the weapons out of the trunks and he gets his pants pulled down and everybody, including the ref, body slams him. If you haven't seen that one, IWA Mid-South, I don't know the name of it to look it up, but Ian Rott told me you got to go watch this match, and I've probably watched it a dozen times now. It's just
one of those matches.
It was just pure energy. And Candido's like, let me put something together with the guys in the back, and Punk is in it. Claudio Cesaro is in it. Nigel McGuinness and a lot of other names that you'll recognize. And I mean, just Candido at his finest, just being entertaining.
Like I always say, I got to see a lot of his career, progress over the years, from being a local, local promotion, out of Jersey, a couple of Jersey promotions, and actually seen his with his brother wrestle a couple times, and then he gave it up, and he does what I do kind of work, it's just business. No,
Johnny's doing well, and he's happy to keep his brother's memory alive. And tell you what, if you're a Balls Mahoney fan, there's some good Balls stories in that book too.
yes, you could tell. Yeah, we could tell some stories.
There's some good Balls Mahoney stories in that book too.
But that's it, man. What else do you have? Anything else going on?
I'm working with Gregory Iron. I'll tell you, my website, eatsleepwrestle.com. I've got
Gregory Iron, one of
the
most hated guys on one of the most hated guys under the 440 category these days, or whatever they are. No, they're great. He's a great character.
No, working with Gregory on a book, and he's got a pretty amazing life story too, and the things he's overcome and the things he's had to deal with. He's starting to get out and do some motivational speaking at schools, and he's got a great message, and some really great, really fun stories as well. But working with him, I've got a couple other guys I'll be working with soon. Madman Pondo and I were talking about book number 2. Again, got a busy year ahead, so I just got to sit down and knock them all out.
We'll save it. We'll save for another time. How's that?
Sounds good. So, yep.
Thank you for coming on, John. As always,
my pleasure. My pleasure, man. Good to talk to you.
What do I got coming up, David? What do I got? I got one podcast with the wrestler out of California, actually, at the Santino Brother Wrestling Academy. June 6th, I will be talking to Darwin Finch. I'm looking forward to talking to him. He's just got done wrestling the Dark Sheik. He's wrestled the Dark Sheik and a couple of Effie's friends, and just a great person to be. I'm going to talk stories with him and see what he's all about. And I think he's wrestled Kachira once or twice. So we'll see how that was. Looking forward to talking to him.
Sounds good. I'll get you in touch with Ella as well.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'll let. Yep. All right, I'll hang up now. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Yep. Until next time. Oops, I can't stop yet. Oh, I'm gonna hit the. I hate this stupid thing. All right, there we go.
You can find more Deathmatch Wrestle podcast on the following. Just hit the like button and share. You can hear the audio portion of Deathmatch Wrestle podcast on Stitcher Radio and on iTunes. Social media, Deathmatch Wrestle podcast on Facebook, Twitter at DavidNJ32, Instagram, DavidNJ36, YouTube, David C. Russell, and DeathmatchWrestlePodcast.com. Podcast City Network, your top source for independent podcasting. Be creative, be yourself. PodcastCity.net. Facebook, Podcast City Network, Twitter at Podcast City Net. Deathmatch Wrestle Podcast merchandise available. PodcastCity.net/shop. Joner's Wrestling Podcast Network. Head over to WrestlingWithJoners.com. Follow them on Facebook. Joner's Wrestling Podcast Network. Twitter at with Joners _pod. I want to mention Collar and Elbow. collarandelbowbrand.com. Use the promo code Deathmatch Wrestle Podcast and save 10% off when you make a purchase. Deathmatch Wrestle Podcast.